Hey people, welcome to the Pathfinder Podcast, and today I am with Jensen Thompson from alternative pop punk band Underweather. And on today's episode we are going to talk about the rise of the band, how he became interested in audio production, future plans for the band, and lots more. Hope you enjoy. So Jensen, tell us about yourself, your history and the band story up to now.
Alright, so my name is Jensen. I am the drummer and one of the co-founders of my alternative rock pop punk band Underweather. We've been in and around doing some stuff in this within the Sydney region and also more recently down in the Wollongong region. The way we got together was kind of funny. We got together from our bass player Jackson and myself. We were in another band called the Cooner Avenue, and we were going to bring, who ended up being our guitarist Elle, we're going to bring her into the band, and the original guitarist of the Cooner Avenue decided to leave and join a different band, so we didn't want to take the name from that band, so we just started a new one, and we ended up getting our other guitarist and keys player Uday to come join as well. So that's kind of how we got together, and it's a bit of a complicated story, but we ended up doing a gig pretty much the week after we got together, which was really fun.
Awesome. What's the scene like around Sydney and places around?
For me, I guess the scene in my area is very limited, and that's why it's, I guess for us, venturing out is probably the best thing we can do, and probably the hardest thing as well, because we travel down to Wollongong, which is about an hour drive from us, and we do gigs down there as often as we can. We try to go more into the city of Sydney as well and really work on that area, and we've been doing the outskirts of Sydney as well. We did the west part of Sydney last year in a battle of bands. We also did a couple of weddings and stuff in the CBD of Sydney, which was also interesting and very different for us, but mostly gig wise it's extremely difficult because in our area, like I said, it's very limited. There's one or two things. One of them is 18 plus and we can't even play those, and the other one, which is in our area, is what's the word, it doesn't draw a crowd. That's what I'm trying to say. It doesn't draw, and it doesn't draw like it used to. That's what I'm trying to say. And it's very different in this area as opposed to going out to another area, because you can go to a gig in other places and there would be 6-7 bands playing throughout the entire night, as opposed to here you've got maybe 3 or 4 bands and they play 20-minute sets and then they go home because no one shows up. So it's kind of sucks in our area, but it's also, I don't know, it's better when it's in other areas, but it's so hard to travel at times.
And that's annoying. Just small local shows. The struggle as it is when no one bothers to show up, and then people complain there's no bands playing. It's because if there's no one there, then the promoter's not going to keep on putting shows on if there's no money being made.
Yeah, exactly. What's the point of putting it on anymore if you're not actually making money out of it anymore? It's that was the big problem with us doing the local gig, was because we started getting paid originally because people were actually turning up, and then because they have it every single month, people just are well, why would I want to go see the same band headline every single month, because they're just going to play the same thing.
And obviously without the small venues, how bands going to be able to get a chance to actually get bigger, because no band's going to start playing in an arena. It's our first gig is at an arena. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah, exactly.
So with the age limit on a lot of the clubs, is that affect you guys a lot, or is it just like you said before, you just have to move that out of Sydney and play to other clubs?
For us, it has affected us negatively, but usually what the rule is here in Australia is if you are under 18 and you're playing a show, as long as you're there with like a someone over 25, you can basically stay there till 10, or they'll have like rule where it's like you can play your show, but then you have to leave straight after, kind of thing. It did affect us really badly because we were booked to do a headline slot in the later half of last year, and it was actually going to be a really good night because it was in like a 600 cap room, and we already knew that was going to be like 300 people going, and we had a problem where there was some miscommunication. Another band was meant to have that spot, but because they were all underage and they were originally told that they couldn't actually go play, that they messaged the venue and told them that our band was all underage, and even though we already had permission from the venue to actually play it. But like, I guess that's how it is sometimes with some bands. They kind of get annoyed with, they get treated differently than us. Why do we have to do that instead of like, being happy for us? Because they're like, essentially that band is like, we're really close with them, and it's like that kind of tainted our relationship a bit. And it really sucks because I really want to support them, but after that happened, I really can't.
That's so annoying. Just what's the point? Just help each other out. Doesn't matter like who you are, what age you are. Just you're all in bands. You just do your own thing. Just help one another out.
Yeah, exactly. Like I filled in for them, and I'm going to be filling in for them again. And it's like I do all this for them, and I've also given them a free recording session with free mixing and mastering, and I do all this, and then they kind of feel like I get it thrown back in my face, and it sucks. Like it really sucks. But it's just, you got to kind of grind. It's like one of those situations you got to kind of grind your teeth and just live with it, I guess.
Yeah, I guess it's just fun. Life, just live and learn.
Yeah, pretty much.
Rather annoying when people do that to you. For social media, does that help you guys out? Does it help you guys out with when it comes to like not being able to play in certain venues, and it might spread to other parts of the country that might help you go to other parts of Australia?
Oh, 100%. The most recent one was we shot a multicam video. It was like one front of house video and we used the audio from front of house, and I also had a video. I had a camera on myself on the drums, and I just edited that video, and I boosted the video on Facebook, and it got us like a couple of K views within like a week. And honestly, like it was there, and the reception from that was crazy because that song that we put out as that video ended up being the first single that we just released. And it was actually kind of crazy because I already have all this. I have a lot of experience with video editing as well as audio and stuff, and that was actually kind of the combination of the two, and being able to really showcase, how we actually sound live and how the song will actually sound recorded. And we shared that online, and we actually got the attention of a couple of venues that with that video, which was actually really, really cool.
That's what good is that?
And surprising, yeah. So like, I guess it's also like the main social media thing as well lately. Like we kind of jumped into it, so we're at a point where it's, people don't pay attention like to Facebook events and stuff like that. So you got to really somehow like grab the eye of someone if they really want to come to your show, and that was kind of the mindset behind the video as well, of releasing that, then boosting it is what Facebook calls it. And then it just shared to a couple of thousand people of like ages between like 18 and 40 or something like that.
Nice. So the boosting stuff, did that help you guys out? Because I hear people like pay whatever amount of money and then they get like nothing in return, really.
No, honestly, like the funny thing is I didn't spend a cent on that. That was the funny thing, because what Facebook does is if you've never boosted a post before, they'll give you money to do it. And then, which is really weird, you wouldn't expect Facebook to do that. They gave me like $15 and it ended up being shared to a couple of thousand people. And I think all up, we got 3K views on the video, if I'm correct. Or we just shy of it at the moment, but it was actually kind of impressive. And it really did help us, because like obviously we got it shared to a couple of venues, and heaps more people saw it than we could have imagined.
That's really good, because every time I'm like posting something from my music page, you always get like Facebook are paying you money to boost the video, and I'm just like, nah, you won't do anything. But I've heard some good stories that it does help.
Yeah.
So I might have to look into it. With streaming, does that help you guys out with like Spotify? Does that do anything for you guys?
At the moment, I think it's just a good way, because we only have one song out. It's just to be like, hey, we've got a song out here. If you want to check us out, this is pretty much how we sound. This is how we sound live as well, because it's all tracked live. It's all raw, and I guess for us, it's just, here, we have a song out, stream it, because everyone's on streaming platforms. No one goes out to buy music. Like, if anything, people are going to buy a vinyl, and we don't have that kind of money to be able to just print 7 inches like that. Like, it's different for us, because we're such a young band, and I guess streaming is kind of the only way we can kind of put our music out to the world. So I think it benefits us in a much better way than it could benefit like an older band. So I think that's kind of why we're really happy with just we were just happy with putting a song out there, and bang, there it is.
Then talk about the music side of things. Obviously, you guys got a single out. What was the process of recording that, and where were you tracking it?
Tracking it was in my basement pretty much. It was, we wrote the song in preparation for a Battle of Bands event, and it was the first song we ever wrote. And we were like, alright, we should have at least one original ready for this show. Let's come up with an idea. And our bass player Jackson comes up with this riff, which ends up being the intro riff of the song. And it was pretty much just the four of us jamming and coming up with like little quirky ideas and stuff with it, and ended up being, in my opinion, a sick harmony part, which is just probably the favorite thing we've ever written. Like, we've written 3 songs. We're about to finish writing songs 4 and 5, and it's still for a band's first song, in my opinion, I think it's actually like quite surprising how good the quality of the song really was. But like the tracking was, for myself, an absolute nightmare. Like, honestly, like tracking the drums to that was so difficult, because I've never had much experience tracking to like a click or a metronome or anything like that. And for me to get that take like all the way through the song, because I'm that person who doesn't like punch-ins, I'd rather get it right, straight, one full take on the spot, no cutting or anything. I'm just that kind of person. I've always been like that. I'm like the perfectionist, and I got that take eventually. It took me like 3 hours to do it though, and it was really hard. And like, people always have horror stories of bass players being completely unprepared, but that's the complete other opposite with my bass player. Like, I think all up tracking time that we've spent is probably close to about an hour for all 3 of the songs we've tracked so far. Like, and honestly, that's really impressive for any musician to come in and be like, sick, I can just lay down a bass track. Like, he only lives around the corner from me, and I'm just like, hey, do you want to track a song today? He's like, sure, I'll bring my bass. When we're done in 20 minutes, it's like, well, shit, what do we do for the rest of our day? It's honestly, like, it was really impressive with that song, and mixing that as well, like the production side of things, the post-production side of things was very, very different from how I approached it as well. Like, I was always a person who relied on drum samples a lot, and relied on a lot of post-production tricks and stuff, and I've never been a person for auto-tune, so I'm always a person who's like, get it right at the source, or it's just not gonna sound right live. It's like, there's no comparison. It's gonna sound, sounds better in the studio, but live it sounds a bit, it doesn't sound as good. Like, with the vocal takes, all raw. Like, I'm that person. Like, I despise auto-tune with a passion, and on pitch correction, I guess. And for us, in the style of music that we're in, I guess for us to really stand out nowadays, I think you got to kind of go back to that old style of recording, get it right at the source, get it right then and there. And that's why those vocal tracks sound, honestly, like, they sound really like full and really raw, and just full of, like, a lot of emotion was put into them. And like, you can even tell, like, there's some pitch issues in the song, like, and that's, in my opinion, leaving the human element in the song. That's where a lot of music really goes wrong nowadays, is not being able to keep that human element and kind of eliminating it. Like, again, even with the drum time, you can tell, even in the guitar harmony, especially, and you can, if you really listen to the last guitar harmony of the song, you can even tell that there's a problem with that, and you can't actually tell until you really notice it, and it's actually sounds like a natural sounding song. And that was my main goal, was get it right at the source, and a lot of the post-production tricks that I used to use kind of went out the door. Like, most of the drum samples just disappeared because of how nice the kit sounded. Literally, except for, I think, maybe one snare room sample, which I might have used, but other than that, like, compared to the, like, in my opinion, snares, like, room samples are different compared to an actual, like, snare sample, because, like, it's just more giving that little bit of extra ambience, and it's not giving, like, any extra, like, attack or anything. And it's, at the same time, that's why I like to, very much, I've been steering away from those tricks and tips and tricks of using drum samples, pitch correction, and really trying to get it right then and there.
Yeah, obviously you listen to some bands and it's just like, this production is on point. It's like, oh, I have to see this band. Then you see them, it's just like,
yeah, what's this? Like, it's like, that's why I respect a lot of bands who still do it the right way. Like, if, like, for a band, like, even, like, another pop punk band, like, I'm gonna take Neck Deep, for example. I look at the Life's Not Out to Get You album, and I love that album. And when the first time I saw it live, like, them play the songs live, like, they sounded fantastic. But I still know that there's a lot of tricks in that album that I wish that they hadn't have, that their producer Andrew Wade didn't use. Like, look, I love Andrew Wade, and, like, I love him to death, and he's my favorite producer of all time. But there's a lot of things he did with that record that I wish he hadn't have done, and it would have benefited the record a lot better, in my personal opinion.
That's the thing about, obviously, productions wise, everyone could be like, I like that, and then somebody else would be like, I don't like that, and it's just a matter of opinion, end of the day, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty much.
So, seeing that you talk about tech, how long have you been involved in the tech world?
I've always had an interest in computers. That's been since I was, like, really young, probably, like, from 7 or 8, like, when I was in the computer lab at school. I loved the computer lab. It was, like, my favorite time of the week. And then I started getting into audio probably when I was, like, 14. I came across a couple of YouTube videos that kind of caught my eye and I recommended one day, and I was like, oh, this is kind of cool, I might delve into it more. And I ended up watching Ryan Bruce, Spectre Sound Studios. I ended up getting into a heap of other YouTubers through that as well. Gear Gods is another one. Like, I still watch those guys to this day. Like, look, I sometimes question some of the decisions that they make, but that's a personal opinion. but I still respect them as all engineers as well. That's how I kind of got into URM as well, because I also was listening to a lot of bands, and all these bands ended up being on URM, which they have been a lot more of. I've been catching my eye recently. And when A Day to Remember popped up, I was like, this is going to be awesome, an awesome month, and it bloody was. It was a fantastic month. And I guess that's kind of where that's where it started. I think that was the moment where I was like, I want to make a career out of this, was signing up to URM for that first month with A Day to Remember, with Right Back At It Again. And I still go back to the mix that I did for that, and I was like, what the hell was I doing? And I look at, like, what I did for my single Ignite My Soul, and I'm like, what I did for this was much better than what I did for that mix. And I even compare the two, and I sometimes go back to do that mix from scratch again, just to have fun with it. And it's the same with the Architects mix that I did for it. I was like, what was I doing that month? And I look at all the everything that I've learned since then, and I'm just like, wow, I've really come so far. And it's always like that. And I've always had, like, I've always been a bit of a tech whiz in my house. Like, no one in my house is, like, smart with technology at all. Like, I see my sister going on bloody pirate sites to go download a movie. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Like, it's obvious. Like, I'm like, dude, that is obviously a virus. What are you doing? And I come back I go leave to come home from my family from up north, and then I come home and she's got like 6 viruses on her laptop. And I'm like, oh, you've got to be kidding me. Like, I've always been that kind of person in the household. Like, I'm not the most technically advanced person in the world, but I know how to build a computer. I know how to take apart a laptop and upgrade it and stuff like that. No, I've always kind of had that eye for technology, and then getting into the whole audio side of things was just, I guess, kind of natural event to me.
Nice. So what was the process of, like, writing the single, did you all like come in and jam together, or was it just like ideas floating around and you just send them to one another?
Yeah, it was very much just us sitting in a room jamming. A lot of it the original like how we start it is who's got an idea, first person come with that idea, sick, we'll turn that into a song, or we'll change that a bit and we'll work on that. And that's always been our writing process. We always sit in a room, or we'll send an idea to our Facebook group chat, and we always just be like, all right, this sounds kind of cool, how do we do this? And we were just really, that song ended up being just a mixture of different styles and like musical influences. And I guess for a first song, we never really had a sound at the time and couldn't really pinpoint the style of it, which is different for us, because especially myself, because I'm like, I could listen to a song and be like, oh, that's pop punk, that's heavy metal, that's hard rock, that's psychedelic. I have that ear, but with this song I can still never pinpoint it. Like it's a mixture of like Paramore, Royal Blood, and Hailstorm all mixed in together, and it's very different, and that's like, it's hard for us to pinpoint what kind of style that is. And I don't know, it's very interesting, and I was interested in seeing how we could take that sound to a different song, and then we kind of threw a 180 and then wrote a complete pop punk song after that.
Nice. I'm just about to say, what was the influences on the band sound, or does it, do you have any certain things that dictate directions?
For us, influences are extremely wide and variety, and I guess the main one that kind of we all have in common is pop punk, but we take the influences from each other. Like, for example, like our guitarist Elle, her biggest influence ever is Slash. Like, that's her biggest influence. My biggest influence is easily like the metalcore scene and also the pop punk scene, same as my bassist. We have the most in common when it comes to music, and that's how we became best friends. We have the same, mostly the same in common, like metalcore, psychedelic, and prog, and pop punk and stuff like that. And the really completely different one is Uday, our other guitarist and our keys player. His is very like, 80s stadium rock, like Guns N' Roses and all that, and even like Black Sabbath and stuff like that. His is the most out there and probably the outsider of the group, but his guitar parts and his keys parts in the songs as well are they add something new to how we write pop punk songs as well. And I don't know, I guess it's something very different, and because he has such a different, and it's also the same with guitar tone. Like, for me, my guitar tone is literally a 5150 with V30s, like typical metal tone. Like, it's the same with our lead guitarist Elle. She's the same. She's very metal driven tone. But again, our guitarist Uday, his is very AC 130, like U2 kind of sound, but like with a bit of drive, and it blends well with the rest of the band, which is something that we were worried about at the start when he actually bought the AC 130, and he came into rehearsal with it, and he just had his drive pedal, turned up the gain a bit. It's very, you can tell it's a very British style tone, but it blends well with the heavier tone of the band, and of the heavier style tone of the band, and it's different. It's very different in our influences and how it influences our sound as a band and how we write songs as well. And I guess it kind of works out for the better that we all have different influences, and we all can kind of agree that, pop punk's our main influence on the band, and it's our main influence that we kind of all share, but we can all respect, and we can also bring ideas from all our other influences as well. Like, the main influence that I bring into the band is my metalcore and like my double kick work. Like, it's, being in a pop punk band, sometimes you don't get to have that kind of opportunity, but with the first single I kind of got that opportunity, and writing that drum part was hard in the guitar harmony. Like, that was the worst thing to write in the world, but writing it and then it's like, oh, I could do a double kick part here and make it really kind of metalcore sounding. Very different. Like, it was a very accomplishing move, I guess, for that.
So in production terms, obviously you're talking about amp tones and what part in the drums would work with double kicks and stuff. So did you have a big say in that? Do you talk and see what works and stuff.
Oh, 100%. When it comes to recording, I'm like, this is how the song should sound, and this is how it should be. Like, with recording Ignite My Soul, the guitar tone that Uday was originally had was very crunch, and I said, this is not the tone of the song. This is the heavier style song. You really need to turn the gain up a bit. And he kind of was very hesitant at first and was like, not sure. And I said, you know what, just trust me. If it doesn't work out, we can always reamp. And he said, okay, you know what, fair enough. And he took the chance, and it benefited the song. And I was like, I was very much right. When it comes to production, I'm usually the most correct in the band. Very occasionally, it's the other guys, and more recently it has been the other guys who's been more correct than me and with the production style. But I guess we're kind of figuring out what works for us. And with Ignite My Soul, it was this is how it should be, and I was pretty much the one calling the shots on that. And it's like, it's like straight black and white, this is how it should be done. And I was pretty much the main influencer on that, but lately it has been more the other guys.
Nice. What are the influences that have inspired like you and every other band member over the years?
Oh man, I don't even know where to start with that one, to be fully honest with you. I could go back to like being 9 years old, and my biggest influence then being Metallica, and was kind of my gateway into really listening to heavy music more. And I look back on that and I'm just like, really? Was I really listening to Death Magnetic and thinking the production on that was amazing? Oh man.
Fun times.
Oh, Death Magnetic. What a wonderful record. Thank you, Rick Rubin. Oh man. But
that Saint Anger.
Bong, bong, bong. And then I think of more recently, and it's like, you know, I'm more influenced by a lot of the Australian heavy bands that have been popping up here and there, and a lot of the Australian pop punk bands, which has been ridiculous in popularity lately. And I try to take a lot of my influences from them and just implement them into my own style. And you know, I was trained in jazz. I was trained in playing how to play funk, and then like that's how I started playing drums, was learning jazz and then funk, and then I learnt the rock beats, and then I learnt the metal beats and stuff, and all the metal songs, and that's how I got into the style I have now. And I take all these influences, and that's how I influence the band, and it's how I influence myself. And I don't know, listening from bands to Metallica, Linkin Park, Nickelback even, I take all of these bands that I listened to in my younger years, bring these into the bands that I listen to now, which is more the heavier stuff, and then I guess it kind of just fuses together with how I learnt when I first started playing. It's again, like I keep saying, it's very different and very unorthodox, but it kind of worked for me in a way.
Nice. For the future, what plans have you guys got?
The main plan we've got at the moment is finishing this EP. Like that's the big goal at the moment. Finishing that off, getting it ready to go. The main goal is to finish recording this second song that we're re-recording, because we recorded it back in November. We just weren't happy with it. We're just like, scrap it. We're done. We're not using it. We're not happy with it, because we set the bar so high with Ignite My Soul, and how the production of that sounded perfect, like recording wise. We were like, a second song doesn't sound good at all. We scrapped it, and I retracked the drums for it. Jackson came in, tracked the bass. I had Elle come in and track the guitars the other week. We still got to track the keys and the other guitars from Uday, and that ended up being, so far with how it's going, it's sounding much better. And voice crack out of 10. It's been very different. And I guess it's, how do I put this? We've been hard at work at all of it, and I think for now, that's for the near future. The not so distant future, we do plan on doing an actual EP launch show, which we're in the middle of starting to plan now. We've just decided on a venue together. We're trying to decide on a date. We've got a ballpark area for a date, and we're not 100% sure when that date should be yet. That's the next plan. Then early next year, we do plan on potentially traveling down south to go play a couple of shows at some bars and stuff, because that's when we're all 18 by then. And we're going to try and do like a little mini tour, I guess, and really work hard on trying to get our name more out there throughout next year. And then probably as a long distance thing, for about this time next year, we should probably starting to get ready to start writing our second EP, which we want to release by the end of next year.
Nice.
So
lots of plans.
That's lots of plans, but I want to be, as much as I want those plans to happen, I probably have to be realistic about a lot of them. The EP launch, probably is going to be happening between middle of November to the middle of December. I really want it to happen in the very smack bang middle of November. But at this stage, I think it's going to be pushed back to around like the week before Christmas or something like that. And then the EP, a second EP coming out by next year, I don't see happening either. As much as I'd want it to, we'd have to be really pushing hard, and I think it's more of a will our schedules line up, because two of our members finish year 12 this year and they start going to uni next year. Jackson and I are doing uni till the end of this year, and then we're going to take a year off, and then we're going to hopefully try and focus more of our attention on the band and really working to getting our name out there, and even potentially getting a management team, stuff like that.
Nice. Man of lots of plans.
Fingers are crossed that they will actually eventually come into fruition.
Cross fingers, eh?
Pretty much.
I think, unless you have anything else to say, I think that wraps everything up.
Too easy. Yeah. If you want to check out our Facebook page, it's Underweather Official. It's facebook.com Underweather Official. I think it's /Underweather Official, because I don't know how to read. This EP should be coming out by the end of, hopefully by the end of the year. We're aiming for the end of August, but at this stage I'm probably going to be pushing back till about September, maybe October. And if you're in and around the Sydney area, please come to a show. We'll really enjoy it. You'll really enjoy the stuff we're coming out with, because we're about to debut a brand new song on July 5th. Really looking forward to that gig. And other than that, I think mostly it's going to be just stay tuned, and hopefully and if you enjoy our stuff, just be ready for more music, because we're planning on smashing some more out in the very near future.
Nice. Anything else you'd like to say?
I think that's pretty much it, to be honest, eh?
Cool.
Yeah, that's too easy.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's pretty epic.
Awesome.
I think we'll end it there.
Too easy. Thank you for having me. It's an absolute pleasure.
No worries, it's been a good chat.
Good chat.